Hi everybody, Chuck Brown from Sonata Marketing here, and I'd like to introduce you to a new brand of instrument we've just come out with called Modern Vintage. This I'm holding here is a J-style instrument, and the concept is maintain the vintage qualities we like about the old instruments, but give them some modern features that we think improve the playability, the tone, the reliability that's lacking from sometimes those old instruments. First, let me go over some of the modern features of this bass before we start talking about the cool vintage features. Starting up here at the headstock, lightweight hip shot tuners, a vast improvement over some of the older vintage tuners. A lot smoother, a lot more reliable, just a dream to use. The maple neck, you'll notice, has a specific color. Some people call it roasted. It's basically a torrefication process. They put the maple wood in an oxygen-free chamber and they heat it up to extreme temperatures and they remove as much moisture out of it, causing it to be a lot more stable and a lot more resonant than it would be otherwise. I think it's a great process, and it's when it's unplugged, I can hear the effect that it has because it's a very loud instrument when it's unplugged. I know that maple neck contributes a lot to it. Also on the modern side, we have a 9.5-inch radius, which in my opinion is a lot easier to play. If you ever had your hands on one of the older instruments, sometimes they feel like a baseball bat. This one's very smooth and very fast all the way up the neck. On the vintage side, which I think is the real attractive selling point of this bass, this one's modeled after a 1966 J-style, which I mentioned earlier, but what made that year unique was a few things. This, first of all, lollipop tuners. Don't see those on very many of those instruments at the time. Very specific to that year. Very hard to find, very cool looking. Binding on the neck with dots. These are pearl dots, but binding in dots was also a very unique feature to that year, which I think is the coolest thing they ever did. Another cool vintage feature, 4-ply pick guard. A lot of the modern ones, cheaply made, 3-ply or 2 even sometimes, don't look as cool, weren't as well made. This is a true to era 4-ply. Very well made and cool looking, I have to say. The J will come with the traditional pickup cover and the finger rest. This one hasn't been installed yet. Another vintage feature that I think contributes a lot to the tone of these instruments is the rolled steel bridge. These days, pot metal or brass you're going to find on cheap bridges. This is not a cheap bridge. This is built like they were back in the day. This took some thought and it affects the tone greatly. Makes it sound like they are supposed to sound, the way we expect them to sound. And I've played enough vintage instruments, I know the difference. This has got that going. They're going to be alder body. No point in doing anything else. If we're going to do a vintage instrument, it better be alder. The last vintage feature I'm going to mention, one of my favorites, small nickel frets. It's a much overlooked feature on modern instruments, but I think it contributes a lot to the ease of playability and the tone. So all in all, great mix of the vintage, great mix of the modern, and gorgeous instruments all around, and you should find one and play it as soon as you can.